they're claiming that they're doing a bodhisattva dance. This video is an introduction to the next Lotus Sutra lab, in which we will discuss Chapter 16, Revelation of the Eternal Life of the Tathagata of the Lotus Sutra. In this clip, let me do a recap of our last meeting and a little intro to our next meeting with these friends. All right, first, a recap of Chapter 15. The beginning of the 15th chapter, springing up out of the earth. Let me pull out the outline of what I wrote up. Okay. In that beginning of that chapter, the gazillions of great bodhisattvas emerge out of the earth. All of them are fully enlightened and perfectly skillful to liberate all sentient beings. They tell Shakyamuni that they are ready to take over his work in the world. But the audience of Shakyamuni's assembly was confused and wondered, who are these guys? Then Shakyamuni says, these bodhisattvas are whom I trained. But that answer was just puzzling. The audience knew that the Shakyamuni is now 80 years old, at that time, when the Lotus Sutra was preached. And it has been only 40 years since he became Buddha. So it must be impossible to train all these gazillions of bodhisattvas within just 40 years. What's going on? So that was the end of chapter 15. And this is an important setup to reveal a punchline in the next chapter. A little intro to chapter 16. This is a good segue to it. The titled Revelation of the Eternal Life of the Tathagata. Tathagata basically means the Buddha. So this chapter is talking about the eternal life of the Buddha. Okay. And there he finally gives an answer to the question and saying something like, since I became Buddha, innumerable time has passed, and my lifespan is eternal. I gained this innumerable lifespan due to the long time practice of the Bodhisattva way. And this way of my practice is still unending today. So depending on how best to liberate each sentient being in different times and places, I call myself by different names and describe my lifespan in different ways. I first, now you think I'm 80 years old, but my life is eternal. And moreover, I appear to these sentient beings in order to announce that I will enter Nirvana. Okay, so let's do a little rephrasing of what he said. So his answer was to say something, all right, so I trained these gazillions of bodhisattvas, but this I, as Shakyamuni, was a skillful manifestation, actually, and hence a tip of an iceberg, as it were, of my entire I. And I use both of these I's as Shakyamuni and eternal life, depending on how best to liberate each sentient being. I left my palace when I was young and started my practice. So there was a beginning in my path. But when I became a Buddha, I realized that in reality, my life and my bodhisattva practice were always already beginningless and endless. They are everlasting. That's what he seems to be saying here. How do you make sense of what is being said here? I need some help from you guys. Oh, and some other guys showed up again. All right, so they seem to have a suggestion. Okay, they're talking like this. Let me just translate. Do you remember the project of the Lotus Sutra in a greater scale? Let's go back to that. That's pretty simple. All will be a Buddha. Anyone will be a Buddha. From that point of view, they're saying, the eternal life of the Buddha actually means that it is my life and our lives that is actually eternal. My panda life, my elephant life, that is also eternal. But this eternal doesn't mean that I live longer than 200 years or 1,000 years and so on. As long as we are thinking about the concept of time in terms of our ordinary understanding, like past, present, future, this eternal wouldn't make sense. Rather, conception of time in this chapter is very much challenged. So we need to twist and develop how we think more and understand better. They're saying it seems to collapse in this chapter by saying that, the time structure collapse by saying that your future Buddhahood is not like an event that will happen in one point in the future. This future eternal Buddhahood, as it seems like, but this eternal, in order for it to become really eternal, that must necessarily include the present moment. If that excludes the present, it's not eternal. That's just something out in the future or out in the past. Right? So that's good news actually to all of us. Because of this, the eternal life of the Buddha and unending bodhisattva practice must be discovered in each moment of our bodhisattva practice in our everyday life. It is something always already happening in our life, unbeknownst to us. We just need to be aware of that. Again, this reality of the Buddha is the true characteristic about us. Then, how does it matter to my panda life or your human life or elephant life? Here's our takeaway, they're saying. There are many challenging things in our everyday life, and we sometimes feel emotional difficulties for yourself and feel pain of others. And we sometimes feel happy and liberated. So it's a mixture, always going back and forth and get tired. But with this eternal life of the Buddha idea, we can be confident that everything's going to be okay. Then we will gradually understand that this going back and forth between happiness and suffering for yourself and for the sake of others, by listening to their pain and encouraging them and feeling joy together, is my voluntary responsibility. So in other words, eternal life matters because that talks about the eternal going back and forth between suffering and happiness for the sake of others, for yourself. Eternal bodhisattva dance. That's why we were dancing in the beginning, out of joy. Okay, guys. All right, so great job. That point makes sense. Awesome. In the next Lotus Sutra lab, we'll discuss what is really going on in this chapter and how to make sense of this, and how you think you are related to possibly to this story. Okay, looking forward to seeing many of you there.